So with that, let's go ahead and hop into this feedback exercise. We thank all of you that have stayed on so far, and we hope that you continue to stay on to participate in our feedback exercise. Getting to see you all in the attending, it's really encouraging because everything we do for power, we do for you all. So now's your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about what we're offering you. And we thank you for your time if you are hopping off now. But if you're staying on, we're going to go ahead and get started for our feedback exercise. So how are we conducting this feedback exercise? We will be using a tool called Mural. It's basically virtual whiteboarding. It's a space where we can have a focused conversation on power data services, tools, and apps. We'll be asking participants to engage in conversation, share their experiences, brainstorm new ideas, and seek community input. This will be an open, fluid space for the group to use. So in this virtual whiteboard space, you'll be able to zoom in onto areas of interest. You'll be able to scroll around this space to see different questions and sections. And you'll be using sticky notes provided or create your own to write comments based on the questions we ask you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the screen share over to Jason Barnett.
All right. Well, thank you, Maddie. And thank you for everybody who's hanging online for our feedback session. We're going to be putting a Mural link into the chat for everybody to access. Again, Mural is a really nice interactive whiteboarding software for those that joined us last year. We were able to use Mural board to capture lots of great information from each and every one of you. As a reminder, how the Power project operates, is Power is a user-driven project. We really are looking for user requirements. We do take that very seriously. We want to make improvements to both the data, to the tools, parameters, anything that's going to make it easier for you to use the Power data and allow it to make it most impactful in your day-to-day mission. Which we may have heard earlier in the session as well, NASA Earth Science is really moving to Earth Science to Earth Action. And that's really kind of taking this NASA Earth observation science data to that last mile. And that is where each and every one of you are coming into play. So what we're going to do in this session is we're going to walk through each of these three columns here. We're going to do a 10-minute time boxing on each of the columns and try to stay within each of the columns as a group. And you might hear us ask for clarifications, see if you can, write something else into one of the sticky notes. What I'm going to do here first, though, is I want to show you just a couple of the tools that you have on your Mural board. At the bottom of your board, you're going to see at the bottom of the column a series of different type of vector icons. We have the thumbs up, the green sticky notes, and yellow sticky notes. What I encourage you to do as we walk through the first three questions, use the green sticky notes, copy and paste. You can do a Control-C with a Control-V on your keyboard for an easy copy and paste. Do things that's like, I really like this, or a benefit of Power's data tools are X, Y, and Z. Throw that to write it in. If you have an idea or an enhancement request or something that may be a challenge, I encourage you to maybe use a yellow sticky note. If you're not sure which color you want to use, just write it down and we'll figure it out. Lastly, we also have the thumbs up. So if you find that someone has written something down that you find really helpful, feel free to copy and paste one of those thumbs up logo and stick it on top of their stickies. Now, I went through and tried to just put some placeholder post-it note stickies on each of these boxes based off of just the initial information we were hearing in the lightning talks. There was a lot of great information in both the chats from folks like we saw Josh in the chat and lightning talks, Ralph, Ben, and others. This is the time for you all to be able to add that information into our feedback session. So first, I'm going to go ahead and start our time box for 10 minutes. And while I'm talking, feel free to read over the first three questions under our current capabilities/use section. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in on our current capabilities and use section. Our first question is, why do you choose to use Power? Many of you all gave great different examples on why Power's been helpful. I had put one in here, for example, as many folks say it's globally gridded. You know, sometimes it's hard to find data in more remote regions around the world. So we'd encourage you to add green stickies here, jot down why you choose to use power. The second question that I encourage you to go add stickies to is, how is power data used in your current workflows? We had heard folks talking about how they use the API with a JavaScript to ingest the JSON for parsing and then use it in their charting capabilities. We have other folks who say, I'm a big data access viewer user, and it's part of my day-to-day processes to go and get maybe reports or look at time series charts. So I'd encourage you to go and add a green sticky to question number 2 on how power data is used in your current workflow. And then lastly, currently, are there any roadblocks to using the power kind of within your community, your area in which you are, your discipline? So we encourage you to put the yellow stickies here so we can try to make improvements, potentially come up with new enhancements for the power project. If you can't think of a specific roadblock and you're just kind of maybe thinking about future enhancement, you can save that sticky till we get to the desired future enhancements on the second column. Till then, we'll stay right here in this first column. I see lots of movement on the board, which is great. So we're going to zoom in a little bit on question 1, walk through a little bit. Please feel free to go between questions 1, 2, and 3 to add your sticky notes as we're kind of talking through them. So a few that we're seeing here, and for those who may not have access to the mural board, we'll try to walk around it as well so you can see what might be happening. Why did you choose to use the power data? Well, I did try to bring over a comment from Ryan in the chats. I believe it was either in the chat or maybe during the actual presentation. It was the presentation. Ryan had mentioned that it allows their project to be consistent and accurate. So we had an additional thumbs up. We also have customers immediately trust my calculations when I mentioned that the data was from a NASA developed tool. We're getting thumbs up on each and every one of these as well. So we're seeing some authoritativeness to being to be able to use the power data sources, allowing us to be consistent and accurate across the globe. Consistent and global data, and of course, free, available, on-demand global data. Do any of you all choose to use power because of any of its tools? For example, is it easily accessible? We have a couple different service offerings. You want to write down maybe in question number 1, if you choose to use it because of the service offerings, that would be helpful. Of course, you can also use that in question 2 if that's a better space for you. I'm going to navigate down to also question number 2. It says, how is power data used in your current workflows? We've got a comment here about downloading it through the API. Now, in this one, we're always really interested to know, not just with our service endpoints, but some of the formats that you all are using. Now, we know the API can be really beneficial because folks like the JSON response. You're using JavaScript and you can easily parse it. But are you using any of the power data formats, other data formats, the GeoTIFFs or the NetCDFs or the ASCII products in your current workflows? If so, we'd encourage you to jot those down as well. And then lastly, on question number 3, going back down to the main roadblocks to using power within your community. I'm going to zoom in on one of the questions that came up in the chat. I believe Josh had put this in there. Was looking at parameter names that seemed to change. And reached out to Josh. You all may have seen that in the chat, trying to get further clarification as we're working to have consistency within our names. But of course, that does become a roadblock as you are scripting a tool creating a application that's using power data, and we want to be very well aware of that. We try to make sure that any of our API changes, at least from the minor versions, are backwards compatible. But we're definitely going to go in and check that out. Visiting back on question number one, I'm really curious, is another choice for using power, the breadth of the number of parameters that the power suite uses. Is there certain parameters that you find really helpful because they're globally gridded? Does the number of parameters, is that also a reason in which you choose to use power as well? If so, I encourage you to add that to one of the green sticky notes as well. We did hear some information about the powers parameter dictionary. So folks are scrolling through to look at all the different parameters. I believe parameter powers now well over 200 plus data parameters that can be available to users. We want to continually allow that to grow, but also make sure that is, as it's growing, that it is the right parameters that users need. So that's one of the reasons you choose to use power. Where did you jot that down as well? All right, I'm going to zoom in here on question number 3. One of the main roadblocks when using power in the community. When querying multiple parameters, failed request does not identify which parameter failed. Thank you for that comment. We do continually try to evolve our error handling and our APIs. If you have an example query or example that you've ran before, we'd encourage you to definitely send that to the Power inbox. That'll allow us to troubleshoot. Many of you all, we have Bradley McPherson and several of our tech team folks that are on the line, and they love to add an error handling into the Power API. And not just error handling that comes back and says, whoops, you did something wrong. Really more informative error handling to try to help you understand maybe what you need to change or if it's something on our end. So please, whoever put when querying multiple parameters, fail request does not identify which parameters fail. If you do have an example query, please send that to us. That would be very.
And there also is a unique ID that should respond back from the error. So if you have that as well, that would help too. But the URL should be sufficient.
All right, so we're coming up on the 1.5 minutes for this column. This is very helpful to us. Looks like we've got some folks in the Power data used in current workflows reiterating the API JSON format, which is very understandable today's web services style working for applications. What we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and call the timer for this session. Let's go ahead and move over to the second column. So if everybody could move over to the desired future enhancements, we can walk through each of these questions. This is the fun part. This is where you all get to kind of vision cast. You get to dream about what can Power be doing to help influence your projects. This is the wish list items. And I do like to reiterate that our project leads on this project really do take this very seriously. This is what really helps with getting the earth science to that earth action. This is what helps your projects really take NASA earth science data that last mile. So we want to hear about, hey, even if it's like, I'm considering this, or have you ever heard of this, or this really cool format, or even, hey, this format's only used in one software, but I use this software. Could you consider? any of these kind of big dreaming, vision casting things, this is what we want to hear here. So let's go through question number 4. What are your future needs in terms of data, capabilities, service data parameters, data services and formats, and analytic capabilities? So is it new parameters, both meteorological, solar? Is it a parameter that is something that you're deriving on your end that you're like, hey, it'd be really helpful if you all could actually create this parameter for me. It takes a significant amount of processing to create this parameter from over a long time period. Let's put it on here. Is it an analytical capability? Hey, I'm constantly having to do this and this with the data set. I'd love to have a tool where I can maybe compare the two, do more swiping, do some difference mapping. Are there kind of day-to-day workflows that you all are doing that we could incorporate into the data access viewer, or even provide in other mechanisms, maybe in a tool itself that can make your day-to-day operations better? Is there a new report? For example, let's say there's a standard report that you have to fill out, some type of table that you use in your field. It would be really helpful if I could just get all of my data already pre-processed in this particular type of report. Maybe it's a standard report. Put that on there. These are the things in which Power really wants to help our users move towards and make your day-to-day operations a little bit smoother. Looking at question number 5, as you know, Power really has a lot of relationships with different software providers. The API provides a lot of integration with tools, but Power also provides particular formats that are very specific to different types of tools. So for example, one of the formats that Power provides is the ICASA format, which can be easily ingested into the TSAT software for global agricultural modeling. Power has a really strong relationship with the Red Screen International Software, which they are injecting or consuming the Power API in. Are there other tools and technology that you would love to see Power being able to more easily integrate with? Things that you all are doing for machine learning, or there was discussion on using Power for the validity testing. I think it was the lightning talk on the wine regions in Pakistan. So put those tools or new technology stacks under question 5. All right, while you all are brainstorming, and this is great, getting some good sticky notes on here, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on question number 4, and we can walk through these. Again, I very much appreciate you all going through, moving up each of the stickies. That does help us when it comes to prioritization, understanding what's going to be most impactful. So I had added from a previous lightning talk, you all had been discussing improving the data dictionary during the SIL presentation. So I'd add that one on here as an example. With parameters, 200 plus parameters, improving our data dictionary lookup skills is really important to Power. Power isn't just about providing the data, it's also an educational component. We want to make sure that folks are understanding what those parameters are, how they were calculated. And so improving the data dictionary makes a lot of sense. We also have adding the solar irradiance on a surface with a specific tilt angle. I believe that might be, tried to copy one here as well. That might be from South, but might be a similar one, adding the solar irradiance on equator facing tilted surface. We have geographical classifications, as in the Köppen-Geiger classification. Also have, can we publish more demos for various data services? I'm assuming that one means more how to use the hourly, the daily, monthly, climatological services, ArcGIS image services for those who may be using geospatial software. And then we have PVGIS is a similar PV tool which models PV output. Ever do something similar? Love to take a look at it. And since we mentioned machine learning models for understanding how neurological models might change. This is actually a really good question. I would be really curious if any of you all are doing additional machine learning. And have you actually been doing any type of machine learning using some of the Power data? One of the benefits of using Power's data in AWS, Amazon Web Services, Open Data Registry, is that you get access to the entire Power data suite in a ZAR format, which is a conveniently chunked and cubed data format, which can help run kind of just one large cube of data right there in the cloud. If you do not use Power's AWS data in ZAR format in the Open Data Registry, definitely would encourage you to go to the Power website, power.larc.nasa.gov, and access, you actually go directly access to the S3 bucket, start interacting with the data. Again, if you all are doing ML, please put that on here. That is a big interest and ways in which we can improve. All right, allow for more than 20 parameters to be queried with a single request. Indicate which parameters return multiple parameters worth of data, thus exceeding the 20 limit, even though only 18 have been asked for. Yeah, so
Clearly a bug. We'll fix that soon.
Yes. So early tech developers discussing yes that there might be a bug there. We can definitely address that. Thank you for bringing that up. With Power's move to a cloud environment, it has allowed us to do a lot more, really stabilize the environment, provide more options for data access. But at the same time, really having to address costs and looking at, the load on the systems that we have in the cloud. And so we will look at seeing if we can allow more than 20 parameters in the future. Again, if there are particular queries in which you are doing on a day-to-day basis, please email us what those are. There may be another option too, where you may not need to use the API. We can show you through a tutorial or have a meeting with you and show you how to access all of the data again in the Open Data Registry in ZAR format. And maybe that's an even better option for you if you want to get multiple parameters that route as well. Like I said, we are trying to expand our service offerings for Power each year. All right, I'm going to scroll back down. Tools and technology, more capabilities with R. Yes, so this actually brings up a really good question. One of the things that we've been interested or toying with is also developing a Power Python package. I don't know how many of you all, I'm assuming a good bunch of you might be using Python natively in your day-to-day jobs, but we are considered actually developing a Power Python package that you can easily import, say, daily requests, monthly requests, all the different types of Power data right inside of your Python applications without having to, make an API call. If that's the case, if you are using Python, I would be really interested to see if we have any thumbs up or sticky note there. Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to our last column, which is the community impacts. Since we're actually going to be running out of time this evening, we do want to be respectful to each and every one of y'all's time, regardless of where you are across the globe. This mural board is staying open, so I'd encourage you to add again green stickies and yellow stickies to our community impact session here for question 6 and question 7. These are really helpful for power when we're telling the Earth Action story. It really helps to keep the power project moving. I'd also encourage you to come back if you're available in tomorrow's session. We're also going to be doing a feedback session again and walking through this board. So as you come up with ideas or enhancement requests, this will be available for you to come in and add stickies. Again, tomorrow's our Global Community Summit session number 2. We have a great set of unique lightning talks and that are going to be there as well. So if you are available and are awake during that time, I would encourage you to attend. So with that, thank you all, each and every one of you all, for kicking off our second annual Power Global Community Summit. And we look forward to seeing each and every one of you all tomorrow morning and continuing to hear your feedback. Thank you much.